Okay, so whenever we say in terms of the data that we're looking at through the analytics that we have collected, we are looking at things like page view, right? So that may call it a page view. You may also refer to this as a hit. So this is just anytime a visitor is accessing any page on your site. A visit refers to anytime someone comes to the web page, enters the website, but it could be multiple page views. Time on page is just how much time is spent on each page. So say that you are a company like Action News 17 or theadvocate.com, like a local like news media source, and you're collecting data. You really want to know how much time people are spending on all of your pages. You want to know, you would hope that people are spending plenty of time on multiple pages. So that might be really interesting to you. Why? Because you want people to go down a rabbit hole on your website looking at tons of articles. That means you have really good content. And then you can use that data and go to potential advertisers and say, this many people from this zip code spend this amount of time on our website. So it's likely that they're going to see your ad and you'll get a lot of exposure from advertising with us. So that's just one example. Okay, so when we talk about entry, that is just the first page view of a visit. And that's the entry point. So say you're a company advertising somewhere and you are pushing people to a specific URL, may not just be the home page, then you can see that that campaign is working. So in my previous position, we had a campaign called Met Here, Married Here. I was selling the student union's ballroom to people who met on our campus and thought it would be a great place to get married. Anyway, so on every piece of content, I was driving people to that particular URL. So it was southeastern.edu/weddings. So I wanted to see that that entry point had an increase when we were running that advertising. I wanted to make sure that that was different and unique from the Southeastern homepage, which had a ton of different people coming to it, but it might be difficult for them to find the information about renting the student union ballroom right there. Okay, so that's just one example of why you might be interested in that entry point. And then the exit point is just referring to the last page view of a visit. Moving on, just some more terms. I just want you to be familiar with these terms because they are it's going to be valuable for you to understand these whenever you're working in the real world of marketing. So I'm not going to have you memorize these formulas necessarily, but if you're working with an analytics package, you will get used to this and you'll have a better understanding of what you're actually looking at. So you might be interested in average page depth, like a company like actionnews17.com or The Advocate, like I talked about previously. So that calculation is showing the number of page views divided by the number of visits. So this is an engagement measurement. This is really telling you how many people are really into your website, spending a lot of time there. Say you're a blogger and you want to know what people are coming to your website for. You might be interested in average page depth too, especially if you have a ton of content. Average visit duration is just the sum of the time on page for every page view in the visit. So the one thing I want you to know that analytics will account for is that just because you have a browser page open and you haven't been active on that page, after 30 minutes of inactivity, it just kind of ends the visit so that it's not skewing your data. Okay, then you'll see things like site bounce rate. So this just means it's the percentage of people that come to your website, but they only viewed one page. So if people are going to your website because you introduced them through some sort of digital means, maybe through a social media post, and they were like, oh, this is really interesting. Let me go and see what this is about. And then they got to that page and they left immediately. That would be a bad thing, right? So we have to revisit some things as that marketing team. So site bounce rate. So if you have a high site bounce rate, that is not good. If you have a high page bounce rate as well, Also not good. So that's your percentage of visits that begin on that particular page and consist of only one page view. So these are pretty similar. Your entrance rate, that's the percentage of visits that begin on that particular page. So like I said earlier, if you have a marketing campaign going and you're really trying to drive traffic to one specific URL, that would be very interesting for you. Unique page views, this just removes double hits of a visit. So if the same person is viewing a page multiple times a day, analytics packages will know how to make that data not skewed for you as the marketer. So let's say our marketing department wanted to look at the number of unique page views that happen on southeastern.com. Same with unique visitors. They know that there's a lot of students that are going to the My Den page over and over again every single day, faculty as well. So they would have to account for some unique page views and unique visitors. So the unique visitors metric is going to remove multiple visits to the website as well. So this is just a quick view of what a dashboard might look like that's collecting analytics. So you can see up here, there are 281,000 unique visitors. New users account for about 60% of traffic. So that's not bad. People that are accessing your site from a smartphone or a tablet is only about 23,000 in this scenario. And then we've got the country of origin. So the majority are from the United States, but there are several people coming to us through our traffic from other countries. So that's really interesting. And you may want to make sure that you have some translation available on your website. And then favorite browser. So this would be interesting to you to know too. So most people are using Chrome in this scenario. And then you can see that there is a pattern, a little traffic pattern happening here. So we were in class talking about this. And I want you to think about why this might be happening for this company. Depending on the type of company it is, that traffic pattern could look bad. Why is it going down and up, down and up? But this would actually suggest that this is a business-to-business website. So maybe they're doing business Monday through Friday, and then the customer that usually accesses their site or their employees who are accessing their site aren't doing that so much on the weekends. So this would account for that up and down in their number of users. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. That explains it. Okay, so then the top screen resolutions, I think I talked about that in a previous video. So you would want to know your users and how, what devices they're using, what the screen resolution is to make sure that your site is optimized or displaying the right way. Okay, and then top 3 mobile devices are broken down here. Number of sessions with search. You can see what different things people were using to get to that. So this is I'm just showing you that maybe here was a banner ad and that many sessions came as a result of a banner ad, but they have a pretty high bounce rate. So analytics packages, Google is one of the most commonly used because it's free, but any analytics package is going to show you a dashboard of all of your data. And then you as the main user or the marketer with that role are going to be able to customize that. Okay, some of these are ways that we can measure the data that aren't necessarily given to us automatically. So you'll actually have to tell the analytics tool what your goals are so that you can measure the correct actions from all of your users. Okay, so some examples might be the destination. You want to know that a specific location loaded. So when I worked at North Oaks Health System, we implemented a lot of video. We had all of our new physicians create a video around a certain diagnosis that they see a lot in their clinic. So I wanted to know during Heart Month when we were doing a huge promotion for, let's say, Dr. Parker, who's an actual cardiologist, I wanted to see how many times people went to that page and actually watched the video so that they could meet Dr. Parker before they had an appointment or before they went to his talk that we had for the community. So that would be a destination. That'd be an example of destination. We would want to know that specific destination and how that happened on that URL. So that would be like maybe where that video lived, that specific URL on that page. The event at the bottom here would be that they actually clicked on the video and watched the video. So that's showing that that action was actually triggered when that person got there. Duration obviously just means that that's a session that lasts a specific amount of time. So maybe we want people to go to our website and we want them to spend a minimum of 5 minutes, or we may want them to have a minimum of 5 pages per session, depending on what our goals are for the company. Some of these little effects don't load until I click them. Sorry. All right. So a few different types of goals. Maybe you have a goal for a destination. You want people to go to a certain page. So this is really common in a retail website or a website that is a lead generating website. So let's go back to the example of Louisiana Generator, and knock on wood, I don't want any hurricanes this summer, but I guess it's just top of mind. So I have that friend that works at Louisiana Generator, and the way, as a salesperson, the way that he gets his leads is that every day people are visiting that website and they're typing in their contact information so that somebody contacts them. So if the marketing people that work for Louisiana Generator were interested in their analytics, they would say, okay, I'm going to look at the destination. How many people are actually going to that thank you page after they put in their contact information? Like, how many people are going through the process, and actually that's what they consider conversion, right? It's people giving up their contact information. So another company might be concerned about an event. So like I said earlier, North Oaks puts out all of these different videos. They want their marketing might be tied to people coming back to their website and watching a webinar, watching a video, so anything like that. It is really common in a media site or a business-to-business site too. They might want you to download something called a white paper, which is where a bunch of people come together and they put together some research around a certain topic. So like, for example, when 2020 was happening, COVID was happening, we were trying to figure out how do we open a large-scale facility in a pandemic, and there were companies that were putting together a white paper based on some previous research on how to help implement safety standards and how other companies were doing that anyway. And so if I went to that website as a user, I would have to type in, Callie Berner, marketing instructor, and my email address in order to get to that white paper and hit download. So that would be considered an event in your analytics package. That's all I mean by that. Anyway, and then you might be interested in user engagement. That might be your main goal. So say you're a media site, you might be interested in how many people are going to your site, how many people are spending lots of time on your site, multiple pages. You're looking for a page, you're going to be looking for number of pages per visit. You would want that to be high. You would want time on site to be high. You would also use this to measure like how involved a visitor is in your brand. So it really depends on the company and what the company's goals are. So a few other ways that you can measure through analytics is looking at the conversion rate. So of course, the point of doing marketing is so that you have a lot of visitors coming to your site, being familiar with your brand, but you ultimately, those visitors result in an intended action. Ultimately, sales with whatever means it might be. So it might be e-commerce site that's selling something and you're selling a product right then and there, or maybe you're cultivating a relationship with somebody and you want them to sign up for your email list. But your conversion rate would be that percentage of visits that result in the intended action. Your revenue is also going to be very, very important. So this is the money that's being spent on an order. So even if it's a business-to-business site that's collecting leads, they're still going to be interested in ultimately revenue. How much do these leads actually result in profit or revenue for the organization? So for every lead that's captured, we might be able to close the deal on 20% of people who gave up their contact information. And then revenue per visitor. So that would just be taking the amount of revenue that you've earned through your website divided by the number of visits to your website. So these are going to be very key metrics that you're going to want to share with the supervisors in your organization, showing how your website is performing. And if those numbers don't look good, you're going to have some changes to make in your strategy. Okay, so I do want you to look at this and spend a lot of time like just dissecting this page, because I want you to be familiar with the term KPI. When you work in the corporate world, you will hear this over and over again. KPIs just refer to key performance indicators. We're saying in an organization, these are our goals. And then we're coming together as a marketing team and we're putting together our marketing strategy. But how do we know if we've done a good job? How do we know if we've met our goals? So we're going to be saying that we need to all get on the same page with what our KPIs are, our key performance indicators. And we're going to match those goals with the KPIs, and analytics will really help us to know where we are as far as, are we succeeding or do we need to change some things? So it helps you to go through all of the available metrics that you will have at your disposal through an analytics package. So any website that's out there should determine the right KPIs for their business. So typically, if a business's goal is to reach revenue targets, then the action on their site is probably going to be sales. So if you think in terms of Amazon.com, Walmart.com, Target, all of them are really going to be concerned with people putting things in their cart and actually going through the process and making a purchase. So that's the KPI that they're going to be worried about. If you are trying to just expand your brand name recognition, maybe you're more worried about people knowing about your brand for the first time, and maybe you're not so much worried about selling anything. Maybe you just want people to get to know you. So you might be more concerned with how many people shared some of your social media content, how many click-throughs, what's the click-through rate to your site. And then if you're worried about increasing customer loyalty, because we know that loyal customers are going to come back and they're going to spend more money with us, right? So our KPI in that scenario would be return visits, people making multiple orders. So if you are a customer with, say, BMW, they may start you off on a low-level BMW and they just get you in the BMW family. But once you drive it and you really love the experience of driving a BMW, their hope is that when you're ready to turn in that lease, or you're ready for another car, you're going to come back and you're going to make another purchase, right? So there's plenty of companies out there that are focused on customer loyalty, and that's just one example. So you may be worried about people signing up for your emails, because you know in the data that people that email is very effective for people who are already interested in your brand or already familiar with your brand. So if you want to make sure that you're increasing your customer loyalty and return visits to your site, you might want to make sure that everybody is signing up for email. So it's not necessarily always going to be about sales as your primary objective, but it will be in the mix. So these are just some KPIs or key performance indicators for you to get familiar with regard to your client's website. A little bit more information about KPIs. So your retail KPIs, if your goal is to sell products online, you're going to be worried about visits in your analytics, in your data that you have at your disposal. You're going to be worried about conversion rate, the number of people that come to your website and actually do what you wanted them to do, the intended action, remember. You're going to be worried about their average order value. Do they spend a lot whenever they make a purchase with you, or just a little bit? And then revenue per visitor. So that's your conversion rate times your average order value is going to give you your average revenue that you collect per visitor. Okay, for a lead generation KPI, like a business to business situation where it might take a little bit longer to cultivate a relationship with a potential customer before they make a purchase, your goal is to get visitors to fill out a form. So you might be interested in the number of unique visitors, that those repeat visitors from the repeat visits from the same person. Not necessarily or typically beneficial to your company, but you want to look at things like conversion rate. So that means you generated a lead through the website. Somebody signed up and they want somebody to contact them. They want a salesperson to contact them. Your close rate, so that's the percent of leads that you received on your website that actually translate to revenue for the organization. And then your closed deal value. So every time your salesperson closes a deal, how much are they actually making? What's the profit from that sale? And then your revenue per visitor could be another KPI type that falls under a lead generation KPI. Further breaking that down, if we are working with a client who is in the media and we're trying to promote their media website, then their revenue is generated through advertising typically. So we want to show that people are coming to our website. Lots of traffic is coming to our website. When I say traffic, I mean lots of people are coming to a website or a certain web page. So we'd be worried about lots of people showing up to our site. We would be concerned with the average page depth. So we want to make sure people are going to multiple pages, really engaged in our website. They're spending a lot of time. So average visit duration would be interesting to us. And then conversion. So we want people to sign up for our email list. If we're in the media, if we've got that type of site, we want them to sign up for an account with us. We might want them to increase their subscription to a paid subscription, maybe a subscription with no ads. So that's how they might offset the losses for advertising. So there's plenty of sites that I'm sure you can think of that operate with that type of model. And then social media KPIs. So if you are going to be on social media, you want to make sure that you're not on social media just to be there. I mean, of course, we as a brand would need to be in the conversation, but how does this actually translate to dollar signs for our business? And so we might want to know how many people are signing up for a new account through interest in our social media, how many people are maybe posting our content. Maybe they're repinning it if we're on Pinterest. Maybe they're retweeting it if we're on X, which would be just reposting, but it's hard to get rid of the word tweet, or reposting some of our content. Are they liking it, or are they sharing it? And then are they spending a lot of time on our site and with us through social media? Okay, and then one more type is a search engine KPI. So that key performance indicator would be more appropriate for something like Expedia.com or Hotels.com. Those are really considered search engines because they're making money off of commissions. So if they have the best search results on their page, on their site, then you as a consumer are probably more likely to buy from them. So they're really concerned with the number of searches, what their conversion rate is, and the average page depth. So are people spending too much time searching and they're not really finding what they want, and then maybe they're leaving that? So average page depth is actually, you want to minimize that if you are running, say, Expedia.com or Hotels.com, because you want people to be able to find the best results as quickly as possible. And when you think about other search engines, they all pretty much operate the same. Google is really the most superior, but it's because Google does a really good job bringing you directly to the best results possible in the quickest amount of time so that you don't have to search. So that's a good way to remember that key performance indicator. Almost done, you guys. All right, so what you want to do with this data is make sure that you're looking at the right information, you're measuring everything, you're aligning it with the goals of the organization, and determining what your best ways of measuring the performance is. Ultimately, so that we make better decisions as marketers and we increase profits, sales, revenue for our business. That's really what it's about. So when our business isn't doing well, what do? They usually go back to the marketing department and say, help fix it, we need a better marketing strategy. So that is really the goal of marketing, not just to be on social media, but to make sure that we're driving the revenue of the organization and the profits. So how can you put your analytics to work? So you want to think in terms of the conversion funnel. So we want to take all of these tools, all of this data that we have, collecting all of them and putting it in a way that your customer or your supervisor can understand it. So if I leave you with anything that's important in this video, I want you to remember that you don't want to take every bit of data that you've collected from your website or any analytics package and give it to your supervisor. You need to make sense of it first, make sure it aligns with the organization's goals, and give them only the information that they need that tells the story that you have found through the data. I'm not suggesting that we hide information, but when we open a whole can of worms, when we give them all of the data and they haven't had a chance to process what we're looking at on a regular basis, it's going to be much more difficult and you will open yourself up to a ton of questions. So simplify, simplify, simplify. Okay, use charts. Show what this data actually means. Simplify it into a few bullet points when you're meeting with somebody. And if they do have further questions, of course, you can go back to the data and make it a little bit easier and dig through it if needed to answer that question. But what we want to do is identify where there are problems based on that data and look at how we can A/B test. How can we test our advertising? How can we test our pages? And see if we can make sense of whatever the issue is through that A/B testing so that we can optimize conversions and make sure that people aren't falling out of that process before they actually make a sale or they convert with us. Okay, so you would want to analyze all of the different channels that you have in your toolkit that when you're doing your digital marketing strategy. So you want to look at all of the key performance indicators that you have put together for your particular type of business and help to direct the priorities. So just a few examples. If you want to be higher up in the organic search on Google, what you would want to do is invest in more search engine optimization. And we're going to talk about that at length in chapters 4 and 5. If you are trying to understand why you're not getting a lot of traffic from paid search, from your pay-per-click, from those like text ads that show up at the top of Google, then you will need to break down the results by the different ad groups, all of the different keywords that you're buying, and then figure out which ones are working and which ones are not. So I'm not going to get into this much further, but you can see on down the list how you might look at the data that you've collected on your website to help you optimize the way that you're driving people to your site. So display ads, email, social media, any kind of affiliate links that you might have in the works. Those are all really important things that you're going to analyze with the help of analytics. Okay, and then when we are doing any kind of marketing, we always have to know who are we marketing to. Segmentation is super important. So that's when we divide our visitors into groups that can give us a little bit more insight. So we might want to look at who is coming to our website from certain geographic areas and how does the behavior change based on that person's location? We might want to divide them by new and returning users and see how their behavior might compare to one another. Does the season affect things? Does the weather affect things as far as people accessing our website and what they're doing when they get there? Does the device that they're accessing our site make a difference too in the data? So when we are looking at attribution, what this basically means is just determining what's working in our marketing and what's not working. So we have to look at how credit is assigned online. And there's a few different attribution models that your book goes through. So I recommend that you spend some time just reading that book and just make sure that you understand this a little bit. It is a little confusing, I will say that. So last interaction could give you data based on what would give 100% credit for the sale. So basically, in someone's marketing campaign, you could have a billboard up in Hammond, right? On your digital billboards all over Hammond. You could be doing a lot on TikTok to get people's attention around that same messaging. You could be advertising on multiple websites through Google's display advertising network. So people might see your promotions in multiple ways. It could be on their phone, you could be on a text campaign. There could be all kinds of different exposure to your brand. So how do you know what works? So that's why you need to think about attribution when you look at your data that's available to you, and figure out what's working based on that. So if you're buying a bunch of AdWords, if you're buying keywords on Google, you might be really interested in your last AdWords click to see, is that working? Is that what's bringing most people to our website? Is it social media? Is it the time? It really just depends. So I'm not going to get into this any further, but it's just something to think about and to be exposed to as you are, going out into the marketing world. You're going to need to figure out what is working and what's not working, and attribution should help you. So that's it for chapter 3. We've gone on long enough. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and I will post some assignments that will help you kind of think through how you might apply Google Analytics to our client's business. See you in the next video. Bye.